Ranked is hard to get right, and this is an expensive lesson that Respawn has been learning for the last few years. And you would be surprised to see how many times we've seen large changes to Apex's rank system, but not really actually hitting the mark. So today I figured we'd go over every single system that we have seen so far and see if we can figure out which one really was the best iteration, and who knows, maybe we'll be able to figure out the biggest recurring flaws from every season. Let's dive into it. But first, of course, before Ranked was released, we actually saw a little bit of a beta test LTM where it is theorized that Respawn tried out a few ideas to get a grasp of how the community would play in a more competitive game mode. While yes, there were some scrims and tournaments around this time, Respawn hadn't seen how competitive Apex would play out in a larger scale, so their solution? The Elite Queue limited time mode. On June the 4th, 2019, Respawn would release the Elite Queue to the general public. This custom limited time mode was one of the first of its kind and featured a very unique queue system. To get into the prestigious Elite Queues, players would need to run a normal game and place in the top 5 in that game. As soon as they did that, they unlocked the ability to queue up into the Elite Queue games. These Elite Queue games only consisted of other players who had previously been in the top 5 of their respective games, so you could imagine that the level of play was a little bit higher than the typical lobbies. The Elite Queue games also had a few smaller changes to how they played out in order to be a bit more competitive than the ordinary Apex games. The ring closed faster, and being outside of the ring did more damage. Just like with how you had to get top 5 to be eligible to play in the Elite Queue in the first place, you also had to finish in the top 5 to remain in the Elite Queue system afterwards. Finishing in the top 5 would be tracked with the Elite Queue badge, which showed your longest streak of ending in the top 5 inside of the Elite Queue. Since the level of play was higher and an alternative to the slugfests of typical games, there was a certain prestige and hype of grinding out these Elite Queue games and getting a high streak to flex with, and other than a few Elite Queue specific challenges and badges, there weren't really any meaningful rewards. Since Elite Queue was all about finishing in the top 5, players quickly learned to play for that end goal specifically. While the first few days of Elite Queue were incredibly sweaty, with teams trying their hardest to win and to stay alive, much like the gameplay you would expect from something like the ALGS, Elite Queue rapidly descended into a war of the rats. There may have been one or a few free stacks running down the lobby, but a majority of the players in the Elite Queue simply hid around in corners hoping to be in the top 5 at the end of the game, or until they were found and killed. Some players even spent all of their time outside of the ring, healing up by abusing Lifeline and a fast heal to out-heal the zone's damage. Everything just to avoid losing that shiny top 5 streak. If that doesn't sound elite, I don't know what does. And Respawn actually agreed, and not even a week after Elite Queue was released, Respawn released a hotfix patch to the ring damage, upping the ring 1 damage from 1 to 15, ring 2 from 2 to 20, ring 3 and 4 from 5 to 25, and rings 5 to 8 from 10 to 25 as well. But the thing is, Respawn didn't actually tell us, immediately, and for whatever reason decided to let us find out for ourselves. The Elite Queue lasted for a little less than a month in total and then never made it back, but I am sure that it provided vital data and acted as an important lesson to the Apex developers. So let's continue the video with the first official ranked, namely the ranked system that we received all the way back in Season 2. This new system was seemingly built with the lessons from Elite Queue in mind and was structured like the official tournament rule set. The first version of Apex's official ranked released on the 2nd of July 2019, so right after the end of Elite Queue. Respawn made it very clear that this is the first iteration of Ranked and that it was a bit of an experimental one and that they would adjust the system depending on how everyone ended up playing. Compared to the Ranked that we all know and love, the first iteration of Ranked only had the ranks Bronze through Diamond, followed by the Apex Predator rank. There was no Master rank, and the Apex Predator sort of functioned like Master does today, where you had to reach over 1000 RP to qualify. We'll get to why it's just 1000 later. As for participation, match entry costs were 3 for bronzes, 1 for silver, 2 for gold, 3 for platinum, 4 for diamond, and 5 for predator, respectively. Earning points was a static number, no crazy, convoluted modifier like we will see later in the video. Players earned RP based on their performance during the match, kills were worth 1 RP up to a maximum of 5 RP per match, placing in the top 10 was worth 2 RP, top 5 was worth 4 RP, top 3 earned 7, and a win would bank you 12 RP. Each placement score was exclusive, so if a player finished in the top 5, they would not earn 6 RP for a top 10 and top 5 finish combined. This meant that the maximum score a player could earn per match was 17 RP before you account for the match entry fee. As for other notable differences, the first version of Ranked had a more lenient loss forgiveness and would award forgiveness for more things than just the server crashing or just a teammate leaving. It had no demotion between tiers, meaning that once you hit the tier that you wanted, you could simply throw as many games as you wanted without a care in the world, without ever losing RP, and you only needed to be level 10 to participate in the ranked leagues. A ranked mode in general was incredibly sought after at this point in time, and every competitive player was eagerly waiting for a chance to prove themselves on the ladder. And since ranked had just come out, everyone started in the same place, Bronze 4. As soon as ranked hit, every single pro and aspiring pro team found themselves grinding it out, with probably some of the most competitive games you've ever seen in Apex's history. After a long grind with countless of hours together, Team Sentinels became the very first Apex Predators. It was worth noting that when Team Sentinels hit any major milestone, most notably Diamond rank, which they got way earlier than anyone else, things slowed down significantly as the matchmaker only wanted to match diamonds with diamonds. After a tweet complaining about this went viral, Respawn seemed to loosen up the queue requirements to allow the grind to keep going. The lower kill limit meant that it took a really long time to actually grind the ranked points out and get to whatever rank that you wanted, but at the very least the system was simple and to the point, and you knew what you could expect at any point in the game. By the end of the season, the ranked bell curve looked something like this, with 5% in bronze, 40% in silver, 35% in gold, 16% in platinum, 2% in diamond, and 0.2% reaching Apex Predator. However, Respawn did not think that the system was good enough just yet, and as they promised, they decided to come up with some changes for the next season. So with the third season, Apex released Ranked Series 2. Series 2 is built on the first official iteration of Ranked, but with some, in Respawn's own words, improvements. The largest difference was that the points in the rank system were all increased tenfold, so getting Predator now needed 10,000 RP instead of 1,000. This was just to make ranked gains a little bit more granular and allow for finer losses or gains. With the ranks now needing 10 times the RP, you obviously would need to get 10 times more RP as you would in the previous system, so with this they also raised the ranked entry fee a little bit, with silver needing 12 RP instead of what would be 10 in the new system, gold requiring 24 instead of 20, platinum 36 instead of 30, diamond 48 instead of 4, and predator 60 instead of 50. So you can see why this change had to be made. In addition to these changes, the ranked system now finally introduced assists, which was a heavily requested feature after players felt like they needed to kill steal to actually make progress on the previous ladder. Even though most ranked grinders specifically requested team kill points instead of assists, it was something in the right direction. You would get an assist by dealing damage to an enemy within the 5 last seconds before they get knocked, but if the enemy got knocked, revived, and then knocked again, you would receive no credits. And this assist system was a large point of contention for many, as 5 seconds didn't feel like enough, and only looking at it through damage, it doesn't attribute credit to players who provide value in other ways other than shooting the same target in the last few seconds of them being alive, as well as the ones that even get a kill on someone who then gets revived as the team runs up. A team kill point system made the most sense here, in my eyes and many, but I digress. Respawn also defended the controversial 5 kill cap that we saw in Series 1, stating that while many players complained about it, there were plenty of players that didn't even get close to that cap, so they believed that the 5 kill cap was a fair number. As for the Apex Predators, their banner would no longer show a flat number, but actually show their standing on the global leaderboards per platform. Keep in mind that around this time there wasn't a limit to how many players could be Predator, so it just showed the amount of Predators ahead of you, which by the end of the season could be quite a lot. So all in all, the Series 2 built on what was created in the first iteration of Ranked, but with some improvements to make it flow better, with quality of life changes that the community had requested for quite a while. There were some complaints about the quality of ranked games, as there was a clear cutoff in the matchmaker at the Diamond 3 mark. If you were a Diamond 4 player, you would get put into a certain type of lobbies with other low diamonds and lower tiers, and once you hit the Diamond 3 threshold, you would be thrown to the wolves against the Predators. This led to a large chunk of players who were too good for silver, gold, or platinum, but not good enough to make it through the entire diamond grind. And by the end of the season, the ranked population looked like the following, with 4% in bronze, 29% in silver, 35% in gold, 23% of the platinum, 7% in diamond, and 1% in Apex Predator. All in all, Series 2 was considered a change for the better. The previous major point of contention being that more players were reaching the upper levels of ranked, that being diamond and predator, but you might not be able to say the same about Series 3. Because the changes to ranked this season was a bit of a mixed bag, featuring ranked splits, which were, more or less in Respawn's own words, a response to the lower player ranked engagement in the 3-month-long splits. The rank split is in the middle of the season at around the 4th to 5th day, where it does a soft reset of one's rank by 1.5 tier, meaning that, for example, a diamond player would be sent back from the bottom of diamond into halfway into platinum. In addition to a soft ranked reset, every new split featured a new map, and you would get rewarded with a badge for the highest rank that you earned in either split by the end of the season, with a cool animated version of it if you managed to finish in the same tier in both of these splits. As for the good, this season also brought in the Master tier, which was meant to combat the weird grouping of players in the top of Diamond and the lower Predator that didn't really have anywhere to call home. This tier would be achieved at 10,000 RP, which, if you paid attention, previously was the requirement for Apex Predator, with the Predator requirement now being changed from a static amount of RP to the top 500 of every platform. Now, as far as I am aware, no changes were made to the matchmaking, and there was still a very clear split around Diamond 3, but it was cool to see a middle tier to give those players somewhere to call a home. This was also reflected in the bell curve released at the end of the season, where 17% were bronze, 27% were silver, 33% were gold, 18% were platinum, 2.51% were diamond, and then 0.2% were master and Apex Predator. While the data may look a little bit odd, apparently starting this season, Respawn only tracked players with over 5 hours played in ranked and decided to merge Predator and master in these stats, which is a good indicator of what we already knew at this point, that there is actually no difference between Master or Apex Predator in the eyes of the matchmaker or Respawn or anything else. It's just a matter of how much you've grind. As for Season 5, Ranked Series 4 didn't actually see any changes to the system itself, but we did see the addition of the Reconnect feature, which allowed players to, well, reconnect if they crashed, which was a great quality of life feature in a game that has as many issues as Apex, where players previously had to not only take a loss, but a penalty to the chin for things that may be completely out of their control. But other than that, we saw no changes to the system. And for a while, Ranked laid a bit dormant, not receiving any direct changes or updates, just the occasional changes with a map rotation, and some smaller quality of life changes that aren't really worth mentioning, all the way from Season 5 until the release of Season 11. That is right, Ranked was more or less unchanged between May 2020 and October 2021. Way over a year! Which is crazy considering that Ranked wasn't really that much of a display of skill past simply grinding, and the fact that it factored in around 40% of the whole player base's playtime. And I intentionally didn't include the bell curves for this period, and some of them are really hard to find, because it would be way too much data just thrown at you. At the same time, Predators kept grinding, as they always do, and many were desperate to see some new changes to the system that had been ignored for so long. Odds are Respawn had decided to stop developing the rank system while putting some more effort into fleshing out the ranked arena system, which definitely saw some few changes throughout these seasons, but as we know today, the whole ranked arenas thing didn't really pan out. So yeah, let's talk about the whole Battle Royale rank system again. In Season 11, we finally saw some real changes to how ranked worked, and sadly making it a little bit more complicated in the process. The main selling point for these new changes were meant to make it less viable for Predator players to stomp the easier matchmaking, especially as they went into easier regions during off hours, such as joining in Sao Paulo, which is a traditionally lower population dense server with a lot of players who have inflated ranks, making it the perfect place to farm easy kill points. Specifically, if you killed a player in the same tier as you would get 10 kill points, and if you killed a player 3 tiers lower, the same kill would only be worth 3 points, and if you killed a player 3 times higher than you would net 20 kill points. So the kill will be twice as valuable towards your own rank gain compared to killing somebody of the same rank as you. Keep in mind, victims don't lose more or less RP by dying to a lower ranked player. It was only the killer who saw an increase or decrease in kill RP. In addition to that, a bonus was added per kill based on where you place in the match to incentivize playing for late placement and actually winning the game. These changes were specifically to de-incentivize pros and streamer Predator stacks, pushing the lower rated players and ruining their day. All in all, this didn't really actually do much to stop the full pro parties from running through the ranked lobbies, and it forced Respawn to return to the drawing board. It's also worth noting that in every rank system that we have seen so far, there's always been a super heavy rank distribution around the bottom of the tiers, since players usually got to the tier that they wanted and then stopped grinding or started playing without a care in the world just to have some fun. This in turn eroded the quality of ranked games, especially in the highest ranks, as teams of master players who can't demote back into diamond kept trying to throw the game of their favorite streamers for a chance at the spotlight, and the streamers were just not having it. The overall gist of Season 11 Ranked was that the lobbies died way too fast, with most teams going for the most risky pushes that they could in order to max out their kill point multipliers. And as a result, Respawn returned to the drawing board. And in Season 12, Respawn tried something new. They really thought they cooked with this one. And it's safe to say that by either Season 11 or by Season 12, we had jumped the shark completely. While you could complain that the quality had been eroding from the lack of changes, Season 12 was the beginning of the end, with a system that was so laughably bad that anyone flexing a master badge from this season immediately is just laughed out of the room, because Season 12 was the first participation trophy season. Aimed to be the polar opposite of the previous overly aggressive season, Season 12 would also see a decrease in the max amount of KP you could get, from 175 to a measly 125, in essence meaning that you only needed to get 3 kills in order to hit the maximum kill cap. In addition to that, placement points saw an increase, especially around the top 5 placements, heavily leaning the points gained per game based on your placement alone, rather than the amount of kills that you got. This in turn led to a lot of players slowing down their playstyle, starting to rat and play a lot more slowly than in the previous seasons. The players who previously couldn't crack Master finally found themselves in those higher lobbies, in turn lowering the skill level of the average Master player. This in turn made the lobbies much easier to run through as a Predator player, which they definitely did, meaning that any players that weren't Master yet, that had found themselves in these games, would find it a lot easier to actually rat and get higher placement, simply from playing passively and hiding because the Predators will kill everyone else. And despite of what some Copium Huffers were saying, this was obviously not a good thing. So, as a response to the increasing criticism about Ranked, Respawn decided to go straight to the source of the complaints and reach out to a council of several pros and Ranked grinding streamers to get some feedback for a massive upcoming Ranked rework. Their expertise was required to make sure that the system would incentivize the right kind of play, as Respawn wanted Ranked games to resemble the same types of lobbies you would see in the ALGS, with smarter plays, stacked endgames, and lots of frills. After the initial positive response, especially from the top-tier ranked players who enjoyed the much sweatier system, the ranked population started to seemingly rapidly decline. Despite being a good system with focus on placement and overall good results akin to what you would aim for in competitive Apex, the lobbies were emptying out at alarming rates. Why? I will let PvP famous Twitter complainer and one of the members of the aforementioned council answer that question himself. Ranked was good, but for whatever reason, the matchmaking was opened up way too broadly, placing Predator players in the same lobbies as golds. And understandably so, Predators ended up just farming golds all day. Season 13 Ranked started as a great competitive experience, especially around the top levels of Ranked, but the lack of a direct progression where you could rat for RP and get your participation reward seemed to be disliked by the casual community. The major changes to Season 13 was a flat-out removal of a kill cap, with the addition of diminishing returns on new kills after a certain amount to de-incentivize aggressive plays at the start of the game, in addition to some very strong placement-based qualifiers, with kills being worth a lot more the later you get into the game. Also, for the first time ever, you could finally actually demote out of your tier, stopping players from getting into that cushy rank and then throwing games without any repercussions. And if you did demote out of your tier, you would see some severe RP losses, setting you back quite a bit to go with it. And with all the changes to how RP was calculated, every division was lengthened by about 200 RP per division, meaning you needed to amass 15,000 or so RP to get Master from the previous 10,000. Not only that, but the Season 13 change had sent every player back 6 entire divisions with the soft reset from 4 normally, leading to everyone needing to climb way more to actually get back to the rank that they belonged in. As all ranked players stopped playing as much, Respawn had to fill up the lobbies with players of way lower caliber to keep the queues fast, which in turn made the match quality increasingly worse and worse, turning both high-level players and casuals away from the ranked mode, with the players remaining being super careful about how to play the game to avoid getting hit with the hard demotion penalties, with some other players who were a fold above the rest becoming more aggressive to climb the ranks. Despite the super high interest, the hype, the excitement around the Season 13 launch, the player count very quickly started to drop, leading to a hard hit on Apex's player base. By the end of the first split of Season 13, the skill distribution ended up looking like this, with 10% in bronze, 28% in silver, 44% in gold, 14% in platinum, 1.25% in diamond, and only 0.1% being in Master and in Apex Predator. The rising levels of controversy and the dropping levels of players lit a fire under Respawn. This huge ranked change that was finally going to make it worth playing isn't well received and is somehow killing the game. Something has to be done, and it couldn't wait for several seasons to actually be applied like it did between seasons 6 and 10. So in late June, a little over a month later, Respawn released some changes to Ranked alongside the Awakening Collection event, and like every other collection event, was meant to bring old players back, and of course have them buy these cool new looking skins. This patch fell on the split of Season 13, and for this split only, due to how few players actually managed to climb in the previous system, users would no longer be sent back 6 divisions and instead only be sent back 4. In addition to this, the entry cost was lowered by 10 across all tiers, the diminishing kill values were changed to be a little bit more lenient and allow users to get more points for kills, really only going into a diminishing return past 13 kills. And on top of that, the ranked difference RP modifier was increased to give you way more points if you killed someone in a higher rank. This was all intended to make going for kills more viable for the average player, and practically undid most of the work that Respawn and the pros had put into making a smart, positioning-based system. After the change in Season 13, Ranked felt like any other ranked system before it, and it was represented in the skill distribution, with 2% in Bronze, 15% in Silver, 41% in Gold, 32% in Platinum, 8% in Diamond, and 0.45% in Master and Predator, which was 0.1% in the previous split. So as you can tell, if we put this next to split 1, barely any players made it to Diamond to begin with.
Rank system released, they double reset everyone back ranks, like extra ranks. And then what happened is all the pros ranked up really fast. After like 2 days, since the pros were in Pred, they couldn't get games because people weren't ranked up fast enough. So they opened up the matchmaking to include golds in Pred lobbies because gold players at the time weren't really gold players. It was just like masters that were reset back. And the issue is they never switched that matchmaking change to normal. So for the next 90 days, it was Preds farming golds. And that's
absolutely crazy.
That's why the rank system, in my opinion, completely failed.
Oh yeah, by the way, that clip of PvP, it's from my podcast called the Offstream Podcast, so if you guys are interested in checking that out, I will link it in the description so you can check it out and listen and whatever. And as for Season 14, Respawn decided to lean into what had proven to work by now once they had switched it up for Season 13, which they did by increasing the entry cost by 5, and then immediately countering that by removing the diminishing returns on eliminations, meaning that now we're only getting closer to the previous pre-Season 13 system, but without a kill cap. Oh boy, this isn't gonna end well, is it? As for Season 15, the only change we saw other than Broken Moon killing off lobbies super fast was that the entry level to play ranked was raised from 10 to 20, which is a step in the right direction, but it wasn't clearly enough. At this point in the game, lots of players, pros, and streamers had practically been pleading for Respawn to raise the level requirement as high as possible to discourage players from making new smurfs and cheating without any real repercussion other than needing to create a new account, farm some lobbies, and get back into cheating and ranked all over again. So now we're in Season 16, and at this point, it's safe to say that a lot of users were done with ranked. It was frustrating to play, it didn't really reward skill, and for the last few seasons only has received smaller changes to make it more frustrating to play. Lots of players were holding out for Season 16 to make some real changes, but all that really happened was that the maps weren't switching up every split, and instead the maps would now rotate every 24 hours instead, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, wasn't a bad change, but lots of players were expecting a lot more. And oh boy, Respawn heard our pleas and again decided to make a large change to Ranked. And if anyone thought that Season 12 was too easy, or that Season 13 was too bad as far as systems go, just you wait until you hear about Season 17. Because while Season 17 seemed like a good idea at first, things immediately took a turn for the worse just after a little while. The Season 17 Ranked boasted a whole new matchmaking system based on your MMR as in your hidden matchmaking, much akin to the same system that we had seen in the ranked arenas, where the system expects you to perform a certain way, and if you perform better or worse than the system expects you to, you will get more or less points depending on the challenge. In addition to that, Respawn split a line straight down the middle where any players in the top 10 of a game were guaranteed to make positive points, and anyone under top 10 would lose points. In addition to this completely new system, the entry fee was lowered to a flat -35 across every single rank. The soft reset with a new seasonal split was removed, and instead Ranked is set to reset fully every new season, forcing you to play through 10 provisional matches to gauge your skill level and then get to the right rank. As far as positive changes go, they did raise the level requirement from 20 to 50, which was good and definitely helped address the cheaters and the smurfs, because we've seen quite a few less of them lately. And obviously I had a lot of hope for the new system, because assuming that matchmaking actually would work, a placement-based system which wants you to win the game instead of endlessly pushing everything you see makes a lot of sense in a battle royale. But not long after the new season was released, it was getting really clear that the Season 17 system would not work out. Because just a few weeks after the new season was released, Sweet Dreams, a pro player and a great IGL, did the impossible. Sweet Dreams solo queued 2 Predator without doing a single point of damage, showcasing how ridiculous the system was with awarding hiding, ratting, and solely playing for position instead of kills. Along Sweet Dreams, we saw several streamers trying to cheese the system just to show how broken it was. And many players might have thought that this was an impressive feat, but not really as any proof of how bad the rank system really was. But that was until the news of this achievement spread, and every lobby started copying his style. Eventually, ranked turned into a rat fest, and not in a good way, mind you, where smart positioning was rewarded. Instead, every player tried their hardest to find rat spots and do everything except actually playing the game, so they too could get into that one ranked that they never managed to get into by playing properly. And I don't mean that Sweet doesn't deserve Predator. He's always in Predator, right? So the quality of matches started dropping fast. When most players are just hiding, ratting, using heat shields, and crafting medkits out of zone, every ranked game either becomes a challenge of who rats the hardest, or might have like that one team of actually capable of players searching for more rats to kill. As more and more players undeservingly started getting into the higher ranks, the matches became more and more diluted, which we have seen time and time again. And at the time of writing this video, about a month later, we now have over 300,000 master players within only about a month of the season. For reference, a typical amount of master players around the end of the season is about 20 to 80,000, and Season 12, which was considered the easiest season to get master, only had a little under 200,000 masters by the very end of the season. We still have 2 more seasons to go. At the time of this video, we have 2 whole more months left to go, and at this rate, there's a good chance that we will have over 1 million master players with this participation trophy rank. The cutoff to become a Predator player is understandably also inflated, with the number 1 Predator, We the People, clocking in at around 300,000 LP himself. And just like with the Masters, he's bound towards hitting 1 million by the end of the season. That's not to mention the countless issues that came up with the introduction of the system, most notably the fact that, for whatever reason, kill points weren't being rewarded. Seemingly at random, or maybe just by being a bug, but at the time of this video, it's been going on for quite a while without even being addressed in the first place, despite all the community outcry. And in conclusion, it's safe to say that Season 17 may have been the biggest failure so far. But what can be changed? Without going too in-depth with something I've been preaching for months, ranked probably needs to be solo queue past a certain point, maybe past Master. Because right now you have a massive skill disparity between Master players and the full Predator and Pro stacks who just obliterate them. Making it more solo queue, not much unlike something like the Realm solo queue tournament, would make ranked a lot more competitive for every single player rather than being a farm fest for the select few. In addition to that, I think the Season 17 system might be fine the way it's been designed. I believe that a positioning-based reward system with focus on actually winning the game makes the most sense, but they boofed it up with the matchmaking. If you make the matchmaking stricter, where it might take a few minutes for Predators and Masters to find balanced games, so be it. Don't throw gold players up against Predators just to keep the queue times low, and of course, Respawn should also revisit the entry fees where you can't just offset several losses in a row with one half-decent game, or just by placing slightly over top 10. We are so close to a great rank system, and I hope that Respawn has learned from these almost 4 years of ranked and are ready to make the last few changes that are necessary. It's safe to say that compared to the first iteration of ranked in Season 1, we've seen plenty of changes for the better, leading to a more enjoyable and competitive ranked experience. And who knows where the future will take us. Thank you guys so much for listening to my takes on this. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like, subscribe, check out the video on the screen, and of course I'll see you all tomorrow. Peace out.